Hey everybody, it's that time again. It's the Baseline Protocol show. Our office hours weekly for folks that are involved in the Baseline Protocol development and standards process. If all of that I just said confuses you, go to baseline-protocol.org, and all of your answers will be or questions will be answered. In particular, click on docs.baseline-protocol.org, and you'll read all the details. Without further ado, we've got a great crew today. Consistently, lots of numbers showing up. We've got and more coming. We have folks that have been. We have maintainers here. We have some core devs. We have a standards team. So lots of people here to not only answer questions but ask them. Once again, I've got Tyler. Now that Tyler's aboard, maybe you and I can work together to give people a little bit more advance warning than 5 minutes before that we're running the office hours. I've been terrible at promoting that stuff, but hey, at least I'm showing up. This is my 55th consecutive week that I've not missed, I think. So yes. So great to see everyone. Oh, by the way, for anybody that any of the Baseline community folks, which you can get to by going to baseline-protocol.org and clicking on that fancy Slack button up in the top right corner, and you can get into our well over now 1,000 people Slack channel and talk to a bunch of friendly faces and people. That community I mentioned on a previous call recently. If anybody in the community wants to host Baseline show in their time zone, which somebody actually did respond to, said they'd love to set one up in India. Happy to help on that. And also, if somebody would like to host the show, I don't need to be the one showing up every single time. So I'd be happy for other people to host the show, and we can figure that out. So that said, that's not a signal to say I don't want to do the show. I'm happy to do it forever, but also want to share the fun. So with that said, we have a group here, and we're going to be talking. This May is all about V1 version 1 of the Baseline protocol, which we aim to have out the door in a feature complete way with good, at least the start to good non-functional requirements in the summer to fall timeframe, so that we can have a promulgated standard early in the new year. It takes about 6 months to get a standard verified and ratified by the standards body and heading over to ISO. So we have two threads of work. One is the standard that companies can use to make sure that they are compliant with the Baseline protocol standard. And we have a core set of interfaces called the core that if you implement them correctly, you will be in compliance. That's code. And so we have coders and we have standards people. That's what we do here. That said, we've got Andreas Freund, we got Jesse Lindsley, we've got Bob Gillen. Good to see you, Bob. Brian Fish, newest head of engineering here on my team here, Nick and I and others at Consensus. Tyler McBride, also inbound. Bob Gillen, I said Lucas Rodriguez from Provide, previously from Ernst & Young. Jack Leahy, Provide. Ralph Knobloch, Dhruv Malik, and Mehran Chakri from our good friends over at SAP. Sam Stokes, Mohan, and Nick Kritikos. Good to see you all, or at least those of you I can actually see. Some people are hiding, which is okay. All right, so let's have at everybody. We've got, we'll see if we got some questions coming in. Jack, I saw that you guys put out an interesting blog post. I think it was yesterday, so good on you on that. I saw a lot of Twitter activity about that. Would you like to say anything about that? What the topic? So say more about that. I mean, like, how is that going to, how do you imagine, where's the issue in inclusivity? Are we talking about more SMBs being able to get access to getting their money now rather than 90 days from now? Or what does that mean specifically? Coke One North America, right? Yeah. Hey, Jack, give me 1 second. I'm seeing a comment that maybe you can't be heard, which might be a setup problem. I think I set everything up right, but let's see. Let's just keep talking go ahead and talk for a little longer, but might hear a little feedback while I check. Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna restart OBS and see if we can resolve that. So give me 1 second, all right? Everybody on live stream, you might discover that that you might have to cut over to a different Taylor, you might this might reset and take us over to another instance of the online. This hasn't happened in a long time, but let me give it a try, okay? Give me 1 second. Let's see if it comes back up. All right. Hey, everybody, can you hear me? Hey, everybody, can you hear me? Hey, everybody, can you hear me? Okay, Jack, say something. Hey, everybody, can you hear me? Okay, Jack, say something.
Check, check, check.
Okay, Jack, say something.
Check, check, check.
Okay, Jack, say something. Yeah, I think we're good now.
Sound check.
All right. Well, we'll check with our
Will they hear us?
our commenting community, but I could hear it on mine. Yep, we're good.
Seeing if I can get some validation.
Thanks a lot for that, Jack. Say everything you
Yeah.
just said over again. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I can be a little bit more succinct with it. So, yeah, I'll just be quick with it. So, yes, the question around the recent blog article that we put out around enterprise DeFi driving financial inclusivity. As we see what we're building within the baseline protocol community, this open source community, as well within the provided stack and the enablement of enterprise synchronization, we see that this kind of new enablement that we're creating as a result of this aligns financial incentives amongst the participants and drives financial inclusivity within those ecosystem participants. And so we see this being highly beneficial for all the participants within the overall kind of ecosystems that we're working within. So for example, as it relates to like Kona or ServiceNow or like a Splunk, for example, we see them as what we would consider the ecosystem operators. And a huge value to them is that they remain the key enablers of their respective ecosystems, which is
so
usually substantial.
You're doing it kind of from a you're majoring on presumably you don't have to do it this way, but your use cases are you have an anchor, kind of like Hyperledger did the thing with Walmart. So Walmart was sort of the anchor, or Maersk was for shipping. Comgo had a set of core participants that sort of organized this consortium type of approach, right? You have a group of counterparties that are fairly well known to each other, and you set them up together. That's one way to go, right? Another might be, I can imagine in the future, any SAP enabled company would be able to just work together seamlessly, right? And so that would be more of a horizontal way of going about it with it from a different perspective. One that Provide wouldn't have an access. You're not SAP, but so you could do it your way. That's one. And I mentioned this to say this is what we're looking for in terms of cases. We want to look at through the lens of what you just said. I've got Coke One North America. I got 68, I think, bottlers, and they've got a bunch of suppliers. They're known, and you want them to be able to be set up, but you also don't have a lot of constraints on. You can do that integration work. A platform might have a different lens on that problem, right? And they also want to know, how do they create value? How do they stay relevant to their customers? That's we want to make sure that baselining does no violence to that, right? Because baseline's going to go nowhere if the vendors can't make money and provide value to their customers, or if it erodes that. Carl's got an amazing set of experiences around traditional EDI and supply chain. That's there you have value-added networks, right? Like Sterling Commerce or Carl's company. Carl, you'll have to say your company. I don't know that you've given me permission to say who you're from. I try to be careful about that when I can. Yeah.
Yeah, and so to add a little bit more to that, John, a little bit more color, from those ecosystem operators' perspectives, we see them as having the opportunity to modernize their treasury operations. This is kind of the new creation of what a modernized treasury operation looks like in the age of digital assets. And so, having the opportunity to actually hold crypto within the books, utilizing it as an appreciating capital asset, improve cash flow amongst the participants of this process that we're creating. And as I had mentioned a little bit before, for the smaller participants, the benefit is that it creates financial inclusivity for them. They are able to get paid much quicker, as well as for a number of the participants within these ecosystems. We create new financial incentives that hadn't been brought into these ecosystems in the past. And as a result of that, they're able to get paid more for what they're doing. And that just produces cash flow within really the whole operation, if you will.
Say more about that one. I didn't understand that one quite as well. I understand why a supplier would get a 1% discount on their invoices, but you're mentioning like 6% to the buy side in revenue. How does that work? APR, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we have two different incentives right now that we offer: 1% discount on all invoices.
That's to the
And
supplier, right? So if I'm a supplier, you'll give me 99 cents
that would actually
on
be
the
for
dollar
the
for,
bottler. The bottler, yeah.
oh, the bottler who's receiving invoices from a supplier, they're paying them out, right?
That is correct. So the suppliers are able to get paid immediately, which is now what we're able to do, and
Oh, you're okay,
offer
yeah. And the
give the
buyer is paying
bottlers two
you
different
a
type of
dollar.
incentives, which is a 1% discount on all the invoices, or up to 6% on the financed amount. And those finance invoices are securitized for about 180 days.
Cool. Okay. So as one of the bottlers, say one of the 68 bottlers, I would be able to get my supplier paid on my credit, and I'm going to give up about a buck, right? A dollar out of every 100, right?
Yep, more or less, yep.
And but yeah, I could also earn 6% a year, so 50 cents on say a 30-day or 45-day invoice. I would earn. How would that work?
So
That's the buyer actually putting up the collateral for the invoice. No?
yeah, that'd be accurate. And then we work with financiers to actually do the financing of that, to actually provide the financing on that 6%, to provide the
Oh, the
financing of it.
financier is going to get the 6% APR, not the bottler or the buyer.
No, the bottler would have the opportunity to earn 6%, which would be as a result of the financier being part of this equation, bringing them to the table to offer that, those finances, if you will. Does
Okay,
that make sense?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. That's interesting. I mean, I just want to give you a chance to. Where is baselining? What does baselining need to do to make sure, in V1 to help enable that process? I mean, Lucas, I know you guys are working hard on that. What are the things that, features and non-functional requirements that have to be met to allow you to go to production confidently with such a major operation like that? What comes to mind? We've been talking about that a couple of times. Um, and I know that you guys, especially Luca, you're a maintainer. What are the things that may not be in the current spec that need to be there?
Lucas, from a standard perspective, is there anything specific that you'd want to comment on there? Obviously, the continued creation of the baseline standard that the greater group here is collectively working on, that's going to be vital to continued comfort and confidence that others that aren't currently working within this would have to move forward with such an implementation. But I think the further demonstration of the type of savings that we're producing for a company like Kona, and will ultimately do for a company like ServiceNow as well, will really be the proof in the pudding that more organizations need to come to the table. But Lucas, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more concretely from a technical perspective there.
Sure. I mean, I brought this up with John, and quite frankly, I don't think I'm entirely ready to expand upon it, but I'll drop the.
Oh, I
I'll
think I
drop
know
the
what you're
pearl.
talking about. Yeah, you don't need to bring that one up. That might be secret sauce for you guys. It's fine.
All right.
But no, let's talk more in general, like requirements, right? So, for example, does V1 need to have more ways of integrating? Does it need to have, are the integration hard points that are on the standard on the API now sufficient? Does it support what you need to do well enough with different kinds of vendors like SAP? Or does it need to be enhanced on the standard side, not your private work on your own product, but is the standard, does the standard core set of interfaces suffice for that, or is it lacking? Because that's what we have to make sure that in V1 is there, right? That there's no blockers. The ideal V1 is feature complete, right? It has no blockers for somebody to implement their I like to call canonical use case, right? The use case I think of is like I'm in the oil and gas business and I need to do XYZ specifically with these other counterparties. A canonical case is, yeah, I need to finance my invoices. So are you seeing any blockers on the open source side?
I honestly think that at some point, considering this is in very simple terms, DeFi for enterprises, we are going to need at some point to start thinking about this in terms of credits and FICO scores and how we can associate on-chain
Verify
an address
credentials for those
to,
kinds of things.
well, not verified credentials, but an open source or a smart contract kind of thing where we can do pseudo-anonymous credit ratings for different entities. Something along those lines. Again, I'm not entirely ready to discuss all the details. I have to think a bit more about it, but we are going to need a standard for credit ratings on chain.
Interesting. How okay, so that has not been that's not an issue that I've seen in the backlog. Maybe we can talk more about that.
I would say that would be a little bit further down, because at first what you're doing, the financing arrangement only involves the transaction, not the entities. You're not really looking so much at the credit worthiness, because you already have an offer and an acceptance. You have a payment instrument already, and the financing portion does not extend beyond that at this point.
That absolutely. You may very well be right. I haven't honestly explored this enough. I do think that it's something that's going to be not important but essential as we move further along, and that is very much going to be required. Again, it is further down the line, which is why I haven't focused on it yet. But I do agree with you that at the moment it's very much not needed.
Yeah, I mean, credit worthiness, I think, really kind of is a further down the line concern when it comes to enterprise DeFi, because you already have a financing arrangement in place, and all you are doing is using baseline to actually make sure that arrangement goes much more smoothly and a lot easier.
Yeah, sure. But
Yeah.
the main thing that I'm seeing here is that at some point we're going to want this is an open financial system. So even though it's designed for enterprises, you're going to want individual users to be able to collaborate and participate in it. Even if invoices might not be the most interesting thing for your average Joe, you do want that person that might be interested to be able to participate. And for them to do that trustlessly, we are going to need some sort of rating system that gives addresses that worthiness, further down the line.
Yeah,
I think it'll make sense when we get there. It might be a bit far-fetched now.
I mean, much more than the credit rating system is the issue of double pledging assets. That needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed in zero knowledge and at scale, which means I cannot put proofs on chains that are megabyte, because I have I have like 10 million assets, right? And I suddenly put like 5 megs on chain, and that needs to be
just as a quick
updated.
master class, what Andres did was give us a functional requirement and a non-functional requirement. That's what I'm looking for. So thank you, Andres. Keep going. Sorry about.
No, that's fine. Which means you need to what you that also has to do then also with credit ratings, right? Because you want what you don't want to do is you don't want to have to advertise what your exact credit rating is, right? Because that can be used to game the system against you, right? If you know what the credit rating is, you can try to fake transactions, fake financial transactions that actually impact your credit rating. So the more your credit rating is anonymous, right, the better it is against outside manipulation. And a lot of that would also, you know, cut down on identity fraud, if that were, because you don't know what you're you don't impact it, because you can't prove, you can actually prove who you are. So but the key thing is you will have millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of assets that are being pledged, right? That needs to be done in a way that is both succinct as well as efficient in its verification. This is
This-
technically very, 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 very non-trivial.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And sorry to cut you off, Carl, but just wondering if we have anyone from the identity team from Microsoft here at the moment.
Not on the call,
I know
but
that they.
I can give them the link later on. That's the nice thing about the live stream.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do know that they were working on an identity system that worked kind of like self-sovereign identities with some sort of centralized connection to Microsoft servers for further verification. So it would be good to get their inputs on that.
You mean
Yeah.
did Ion?
Ion, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ion
Did
element.
Ion
Yeah.
was-
Yeah. That's just one of many. So that's
Yeah.
not,
I
it
have a
just scales. It's an L2.
I have a question though. Is determining credit worthiness the purview of the baseline service?
Well,
No,
no, but
it enables
enabling, but having the instrumentation that allows for that is right. So
Essential.
yeah,
So we
it's
can pull a D
let
and
me put this in a more abstract, generalized way, in a statement, right? I know a value X, right, which fulfills properties A and B, and it's part of the set,
okay.
right? It's like that's your
Yeah.
generalized key requirement that is true for any proof that you're putting that has certain characteristics, and then you will need to prove, are you in a set or not in a set, and and then you need to update that set, right?
From-
So it's like that's again non-trivial, because you're just starting to spam the chain, because it has to be on chain, because anybody has to be able to verify it, and it has to be publicly
And
verifiable.
you now cross into the orbit of the Fair Credit Reporting Act because you are making judgments and decisions based on this.
Yeah. I don't know if credit
Exactly.
rating is, I would make it a little more abstract and bring in a concept of reputation, right? What is
Yeah.
a reputation of a counterparty? It's not, so it sidesteps some of that. And we've done stuff with reputation-based identity management before. We've experimented, right? So the idea is that if I'm Carl and I know John and Andreas, then I may be aware of something called the baseline protocol, right? There's some inferences that could be made. We've created graphs of interactions before, reputation, subgraphs, et cetera, with weighted edges. We've experimented in this space before. Various teams I've worked on have, right? I think the concept of a reputation-based identity is important. It doesn't mean that it represents an individual. It could represent an entity or a wallet address, right? If the wallet address keeps doing these transactions using the baseline protocol and they keep failing, they should get a reputation for they're doing something wrong, right? Now, if they're passing the ZK circuits, right, then reputation should increase. I look at something like the baseline protocol as guardrails, right? Once you execute something using a protocol implementation, it should just work, right? If it fails repeatedly or you're trying to game the system, then you should have a reputation hit, right? And then over time, yeah, you can throw the wallet address away and create a new one as a new endpoint. That's fine, right? And build your reputation back up. That you see metaphors of that in real life, right? With people going through bankruptcy or organizations or restructuring, right? I think that there's already a lot of lessons learned, right, in industry and in the real world that can be translated to a protocol spec, right? And especially when you're talking about reputation. If you get so esoteric as credit, then you're going to have a bunch of regulators, you're going to have a bunch of other parties, you know, you're going to have a lot of things that you need air cover for. If you provide guardrails around how reputation can be at least measured, not influence, because you know the negative case is always harder, right? How do you prevent people from destroying somebody else's reputation, another endpoint's reputation? This is a whole academic discussion, but I think it is very important to account for reputation-based transactions.
You
Well,
know, let me suggest a summary of that, and a more so we've taken it from a highly specific thing to a little more generalized with reputation. Take it even further. The canonical case would be I need to be able to assert something in order to do to be allowed for the guardrails to permit another thing to happen, or to allow the proof to proceed, right? So in this case, I need to assert that that I pay all my bills and to everyone. I mean, as a product person, I'd be quite excited if I was in a ARAP company and I said, whether they're my customer or somebody else's customer, both the buyer and the supplier, you know, I'm on, you know, pick your ARAP system, and, you know, the buyer's on some ERP system, and they're not all on the same, you know, platform. But I can still know that the buyer that my platform's customer is billing is, you know, not only pays their bills to this guy, but to everybody, without them sending me the information onto my platform that I shouldn't have about them, right? That should stay on their platform, or perhaps even just, you know, in their own company. But I'm going to give them a better credit rating, or I'm going to give them a better deal on something, whether it's invoice financing or something else. I'm going to give them better terms because they were able to assert a thing, whether that's a Moody's report, or whether it's reputation, or whether it's just, yeah, out of 1,000 invoices, they paid all 1,000 of them on time.
Yeah.
Right. You know, but you know, to be able to do that under zero knowledge, and for the circuit that governs that particular work step to be able to take that in and generate the appropriate constraints. Andreas, you're the most generalized thinker I know. Does that comport with your thinking?
Yeah, the big challenge is so anything that you say, even if you call it reputation, it's like with securities, right? Oh, my token is not a security. Well, it talks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it is a duck.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. So
And
so
it
a
looks like a
particular
duck,
company
right?
implementing that would have to deal with a lot of legal and a lot of stuff. The protocol itself is more abstract than that, right? You
The
know, how
protocol more
what
is
you do with it is where you might get into trouble.
what you do is you have your most generally you're proving set membership in zero knowledge, where the set has certain characteristics or is defined by certain things, right? Whatever they may be, right? They may be that you have value, that value X has a characteristic to be in a value range A to B, and C to D, right? For two different characteristics of that particular value, right? You can create sets like that.
So
right?
do we have the feature set required to do that minimally and viably? Viable being the harder one to assess. You know, do we have that, or you know, folks, some of the maintainers on the call, Sam, you've been working on this problem with double. What are we missing in V1 in the current roadmap, or anything, or do you think that we have, if we go on current course and speed, will we be able to allow a company like Provide or another one to or a platform to be able to implement that constraint service that says, yeah, you have to show this in order to get that?
Are you asking what are we missing specifically for double spend protection, or
Well, that's
more
one of them. And I know that that's part of, we've already discussed double spend protection. So that one's already in the can. But if you want to reiterate it, that would be good. In fact, we talked a little bit this morning about maybe, do you have any updates on your thoughts about double spend?
No updates compared to a week or so ago, but I don't know if I've shared the thoughts here, but the summary is pretty much that we implement in the Shield contract the pattern of using a Genesis commit in the data structure where you're storing all these commitments or hashes. So you use a Genesis commit that includes information that helps you kind of anchor where you're putting your hashes. So it would include the smart contract address and probably whatever layer 1 network ID you're using. So then all subsequent hashes you're storing in that location are kind of tied to that one smart contract. So any signatures that you're making are all kind of linked to that one location. So a combination of a Genesis commit and then like an exit commit that kind of locks your data. So once you make the decision that your workflow is completed, you can add a final commitment, and that exit commitment can include information like which financing facility you're intending to use.
So this would allow you to, as long as nobody was stupid enough not to buy an invoice from somebody without a baseline proof of this type, they would, or following the standard, right? We could go around, and kind of in a marketing sort of way, make sure that everybody's, hey, if you're buying invoices from people, don't do it unless you see this. Then we would ameliorate the potential for somebody to sell their invoice twice, unless they were colluding with the buyer, right? Because if the buyer and the supplier create a new 2 or 3 new invoices, then you got a whole different kind of problem. But if the supplier tries to sell the invoice twice, the second one's going to fail, right? Or as long as somebody's checking the proof.
Yeah, I think any company that was trying to finance an invoice should recalculate all of the hashes that were stored in that Shield contract and verify all the data that they're being told by the supplier to make sure that they agree with what the value of that invoice is.
And is that function well articulated in our roadmap, do you think, or do we need to add something there for V1?
The process of actually getting financing for an invoice, I think, is kind of post baseline protocol process to me.
Yeah,
I
think
the baseline protocol,
adding that end condition proof is, well, I guess that's kind of already there, isn't it? It's just how you implement it.
There's no real current, I guess, instruction or indication of how you should use a Genesis and exit commit. So those are 2 changes I just proposed. I think the maintainer, I think I owe a better articulation and a more formal proposal for those ideas, and hopefully the maintainers team could come to an agreement on that. So hopefully on Monday on our next meeting we can come to some sort of agreement.
So the proofs need to be publicly verifiable by anyone at any point in time, right? So it can't be in the Shield contract because I don't have access to that. Anybody from the outside needs to be able to do that because you don't know who holds the token that the proof refers to as collateral, right? I have potentially several million of them, right?
So
that
as
I
you
need
said,
to
they need
check.
to be small.
So not only be small, I need to be able to verify them if I can't verify them fast, then I'm spending a lot of compute, and especially if I need to verify it on chain, then that's a significant cost factor.
So
right?
I would
So
exhort those of us who are working
I can't
on
do that.
Right. So so determining what the actual NFR would be, non-functional requirement for that, means those of us who are working in that space have got to look into what we're doing and say, yeah, our clients or our solution, our use case needs to be able to calculate that in under 5 seconds. Otherwise, machine X will, time out or something like that, right? So the question
I've
is, what
already
is the
formulated
tolerance?
that in the standard. It's already
Really?
formulated in the standard. I'm working on it. I'm going to push it out as a PR probably maybe this week or next week.
I love you, man. You're always 2 steps ahead.
The problem is that I'm royally screwing any implementer because they need to go back to school to learn about RSA accumulators and pre-processing snarks and things like that. So it's highly non-trivial to implement this in a way that is A, compliant, and B, again, does not screw you either cost wise or as I like to say, break mainnet.
Don't break. Yeah, line one
Whatever you
of the
do,
baseline
don't break
standard.
the-
Don't break the mainnet. Yeah,
So
Don't break the mainnet, right?
Carl, go ahead. Sorry.
Random question, and it got me thinking, right? So, I mean, one of I have a handful of tenants that I do, when I'm working in security. There's certain things you don't do. One of the top ones is roll your own crypto, right? And I'm from a logistics standpoint, does it make, would the baseline project do like a Gitcoin grant maybe for reference implementation of that, that functional component so
Yes.
that everybody else can reuse it?
That would be very much, I can't see anything about what you just said that would be inappropriate for the
Because I'm
grants.
terrified that people try to take the spec in certain parts and go implement it on their own. It just feels bad, right? Bad feelings would come from that. Everybody rolling their own kind of crypto state machines. It just sounds bad.
Let me add a little PSA here for the viewers. If you didn't know if you didn't know already, we have a very generous grant from the Ethereum Foundation for $100,000 that we have to spend, sometime this summer on R&D code and enablement projects that you can propose. We can do bounties and we can do grants, straight up grants. There's already 3 or 4 that have been awarded, and you can be the next one. Go to baseline-protocol.org. And you can you'll see the link right there to get into the process and propose a project. And Carl, if you wanted to write that one up as a bounty, you just reminded me there's another one, a Hello World one that I wrote that we have to ratify in the TSC and get out there if somebody wants to do that one.
Yeah, after Andreas gets his kind of mind dump into the spec and the PR, yeah, I could definitely go through it and put pen to paper on something.
Okay. So let's peek on those things. Mohan, I think you had a question earlier. Do you feel like you still want to ask it?
Yeah, well, I guess it's more about the Ethereum
ETH2.
and in terms of how they were looking at off-chain, on-chain, and one-way proofs and kind of lifting the burden of proof, off the main of the on-chain, and it looked like there was sort of it was like coming towards baseline as baseline was kind of interface with Ethereum. So I was just wondering if there was some coordination or some someone who kind of knew if there was a convergence of the two, a complementary convergence. I'm not sure if I'm stating it right. It was just just some things I noticed on the Ethereum 2 updates.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
So there was just a hackathon around it's called the merge. So you're merging ETH1 and ETH2. You're doing a merge mining approach. So you're still doing so one node runs both, right? And you can reuse your EVM for contracts on a shard, and then you're finalizing your ETH2 blocks on Beacon or on the shards, and doing it on ETH1, but then ETH1 can be defined just as an execution framework on the beacon chain, and it can then run across shards or on just one shard. So that's what eventually is going to happen. So you still have sort of like ETH1 as its own shard, so to speak, that is still chugging along, and then people as because you reuse the EVM, as people want to, they can just simply switch over to ETH to ETH2 at their own timeline. So that's the current direction. And there was a ultra short-lived testnet how that works, and that found that it still needs a lot of work, but it's kind of works. So that's a good thing. So everything is moving in the right direction, but everything in Ethereum, albeit moving in the right direction, takes its sweet
So this is,
time.
if anything, it's a validation of what Baseline is doing, right?
So for Baseline, the interesting thing is, Baseline right now is a very inefficient L2. If you want to,
I mean, it is a technique that can be applied to make a very inefficient L2.
Well, it is implementations of the Baseline protocol are inefficient.
But efficient enough for probably supply chain.
No, but the point being is that this is primarily it from the outside, if you don't know the inside mechanics, it looks like an L2, it walks like an L2, it sounds like an L2, but a not very efficient one.
L2 where you're leaving all the data on traditional databases.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So it's that so L2s work very well and gonna work very, very well, whether it's like on the hybrid, on the merge piece, or just on ETH2, and you can actually then, because of the merge, you'll be able to smoothly migrate your baseline stack over to ETH2. And if you really want to be really cool, then your baseline stack also runs ETH2 validators and full nodes, and then you can do atomic transactions.
No, that doesn't work for us. We're not the cool kids. We're the boring kids.
Cross shards.
We're the boring. We're the boring kids. That's how we are cool.
I know, but but I mean, you can really leverage this approach, the merge approach, for interoperability. So that's actually a very positive thing that comes out of that.
Let me ask you a question about that, and it relates to what we were just discussing earlier about double spend, or double. It's not really calling it double spend. It's just doing fraud by convincing people to buy your double pledge. This came up earlier today on another call. It kind of is related to this ETH2 thing. If you say the world does, there's two ways this could go, right? Ethereum mainnet becomes the place that you go looking for the proof of that, so if I said, if I went out there to everybody and said, don't be dumb, don't ever buy an invoice from anybody unless you see this proof somewhere. Now, if all of those were as a standard put on the Ethereum mainnet, say, then we all know where to go. We all know where to look. But what if, as often happens, different interests try to put it on different state machines, and now I've got those proofs all over the place. I'm back to balkanization. And how would we as a protocol deal with that and allow for the benefit, which is very quick, being able to quickly ascertain whether or not that invoice has been sold to somebody else yet. And would that be, we're going to all have, as I've said in the past as a pundit, at some point we're going to need to decide which state machine is the ultimate arbiter, or do we, the internet of hashes, as I like to say, or is it that we have to do something more like it did, where, it's fine. Yeah, it's discoverable. It's resolvable, and maybe even it's off of my did doc. You know, that's. I mean, Andreas, what would you do there? Do you think?
You cannot. So the analogy is counterfeit money, right? It's like if someone gives you a $20 bill, right? You have two options, right? Either you trust it that it's a real one, or you have the equipment to check that this is fake, right? The good thing is all the information that you need to ascertain whether it's fake or not is in one place, right? In that $20 bill, right? That's because it's the analog world, right? You have to have stuff in one place, right? Otherwise you can say, well, it's not in one place. I'm not trusting you. So it's like I can't prove that it's
Would we
it's
want to
real.
convert would we want to convert what that Sam's exit proof into some kind of a verified credential, where if you're putting it on Ethereum or you're putting it on something else, your verified credential that you send to somebody, that's, when somebody says, I'll buy your invoice, but I got to see that credential.
But I don't,
right?
I can create a proof using a different circuit that looks completely different. So based off of the exact same record, right? So it's like, how do you know? You can't. It's just simply not possible, right? It's like you can never prevent someone of taking that real world invoice and baselining it twice or three times or four times using, and if they're different circuits, it's like unless you have a KYC AML.
Well, that's assuming that
service.
your buyer is colluding with you, right? Yeah, you and your buyer could make 5 different invoices and try to sell all 5.
No, same invoice.
No, you got to look at Sam's thing. That would knock that out.
Yeah, no, different chain, different circuit, completely different, right? It's a completely different baseline stack. I run this on Flow.
Yeah.
Right. I run this on.
But you're going to have to
Cardano.
sign up your buyer, your counterparty, to go in with you and do it twice.
Why? You're pledging your invoice. You're selling it to quote unquote. You're selling it to an entity. I can run my own baseline. I can run my own baseline stack, tokenize it, and then push it out on a DeFi platform. Right? It's like, oh, look here, it's pledge protection. Boom. How do you know? I can, it's like you can't, right? Because it's going to look different. The proofs are going to look different, right? It's like there's no way to know. It will come back to who are trusted baseline operators. So if Microsoft operates a baseline stack for clients, yes. If that proof, if that commitment, if that comes from an address that is associated with a contract address system, smart contract system that is associated with a Microsoft run baseline stack, you would say, yes, I can trust that, right? That is exactly like the $20 bill that looks like a $20 bill and holds up to scrutiny. But
I think I'm going to have to. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm going to have to go and watch the game tape on this one to replay it a couple of times, and it might sink into my head. But I think it's good. Mohan, let me just give a quick shout out to Mr. Biggles on the YouTube channel. He's saying wonderful things. I love his comments, or their comments. And yeah, can't wait for the Ernst & Young Summit. I think they're bringing up. Yeah, that is coming up, and we'll all be there with bells on.
John, I've got a follow-up question. Once you're done with this, I've got a follow-up question.
Yeah, Mohan, and also, Drew, I saw your comments in the about BLS signatures, et cetera. That was pretty interesting. Go ahead, Mohan.
Yeah, with respect to this dollar bill, right? I mean, in terms of how do you kind of verify, that it's either you either trust it, it's real or not. But to verify that, that it is real or not, you have certain attributes, right, of the physical dollar. Is it possible to sort of have a uniform encoding model, like 56 bits, and that encodes the namespace, and then in this particular case of the dollar is a particular kind of entity, and it has a particular way of proving that it is so, and therefore you as a looking at it anonymously, you sort of say, well, this particular token happens to be a token in this namespace, therefore I kind of understand what it is. And if it has certain properties validated, which I understand that's encoded in a certain way, then I'm ready to accept that it's right or not. So is there a way to kind of bake in the domain model, a la namespace, into like a vector that so you can kind of have domain knowledge as part of the hash? I mean, I'm just, it may be a wild thought, but does it make sense?
I'm working on it. Let's bring that up next time. I mean, there's a lot in there. But I think, and we're at the top of the hour. So let me say this. This is what we were designing. That's why it's so great to have these calls. It's great that we have this every week. It's so wonderful to have so many people showing up on them. And it's great to be able to pack in something that we would have had to have another meeting about, into this public forum. Really encourage everybody that's out there. Be thinking about what you want to use all this stuff for. We've been talking about it for over a year. At this point, it should be no secret that baselining is about reducing screw ups between legally separate entities and their systems that have to talk to each other in a standardized way that reduces the need for standing up new silos of integration buses every time. And when you play that story out into specific uses, we need to be sure for V1, which we're accomplishing this year, that V1 is useful for these key kinds of cases. And so we'll be continuing these conversations until the end of May, at which point we're going to lock in, write down the roadmap, and complete the work, and then release it. So so it's really important that we catch all the edges. That's what this call is all about. And I think we wander around a little bit. I thought we had some really interesting conversations, and I hope that they lead to. And I'll encourage you all to think about what was said today, and does it, if it, taking a shower at some point and you say, aha, that led me to, we need a thing that we forgot. That's the goal. Hey, we need a thing that we forgot. We need to put a requirement in that we did not write. The goal is to have the best set of requirements in by June so that we can really work confidently from there.
Being able to baseline John's showers. I think that's the.
Oh, dude, see, now that's there forever. That's like forever. That's something that's, my grandkids are going to have to watch that.
That's why I said it. Those it's immortalized.
All right. And I really did mean it earlier. I do love you, man. I really do. So it's great to see everybody. Any last words before we go? Best of success to everybody, and keep on baselining. Hey, by the way, if you're a musician or somebody that would like to create a new theme song for us, we'd love to get a dedicated song for baselining. Cheers.
Okay.
Baseline.